Hello, hello, this is Anthony, and I'm excited today to get into HTML. I don't know how many of you out there are as excited about programming as I am, but hopefully if you're not now, you will be by the end of this video. So, two things. One, I'm hoping to teach a life lesson that will help you not only in programming, but with anything in life, and that is how to learn how to learn. That's one of the biggest challenges, especially as we get older, that people have when it comes to learning something new is that barrier that they run into once there's a challenge, once it gets a little harder. And learning how to learn through repetition, through visualization, or whatever, you need to figure out what it is that's going to help you learn how to learn. Because in programming and in HTML, web design, whatever, there is so much out there that you can learn that you're not going to learn at all. So if you can figure out where to find the answers to your questions and ask the right questions, then you will be successful in programming. So moving on. Number one, how do you ask the right questions? I think I just hit on that. So you're going to learn how to use the Google machine. You're going to learn how to go out there, ask a question that is pertinent to the problem you are trying to solve, and then a couple of different sites that I typically use to find those answers, and different ways that you can use that information to help you in your problem solving journey through, for example, reverse engineering. So for the most part, most programmers that I talk to do not create programs from scratch. There's really no point in doing that, even websites, no point in creating it from scratch, because the framework, i.e. the basic skeleton or makeup of all websites is going to be roughly the same. And if it's not, then you will likely find one, because there's so many different ones out there, that is going to be similar or something you can base yours off of. So if you can learn how to reverse engineer a chunk of code into making it into something that you want to accomplish, then that is really the key to success. I've been getting a lot of messages asking very fundamental questions about programming, which is why I decided to start this series. And this particular video is really just going to hit on some of the basics. It's not going to go into the actual coding yet. That'll be the next episode and future episodes to come. But this one is really just going to kind of give you an overview of programming, and if you're in school or just for the first time interested in the idea of programming or web design, this will hopefully get your mind, spark that brain that will gauge your interest. All right. So, and here's why tags. I put this out here just to give you an idea. There's so much information out there, and HTML fundamentally is built with tags. So if you look here, this HTML that's inside the bracket, and then the close HTML, which is this slash followed by HTML inside the bracket. Every web page that you go to is going to have this opening and closing tag with stuff in the middle. Now the stuff in the middle is going to be closed with other tags, and it's basically telling your web browser what type of information you want to present to the screen. So you'll have head, which you can put, scripts, CSS, all sorts of things in the head. P tags, which would be a paragraph tag, headers, which get smaller as the number gets bigger, line breaks, etc. So, and then, blah, 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 blah. And I tossed all this out there just to give you an idea. Is like, if you learn how to learn, if you learn how to find these things online, you won't have to memorize them. You just have to have a basic idea of the possibilities. So let me just start by showing you really quick here, html.com/tags. If you just Google the words HTML tags, this is the top choice. So really there's no challenge in finding out what tags are available to you, because there's a nice tag here on the left, and then there's an explanation to the right of what that particular tag does. So that is really all it takes to be successful, is to know what you are trying to accomplish. So back to the slides. All right, learn how to learn. Now I have a feeling I'm going to make several videos here where I'm going to hit on this over and over again, because again, this is a life lesson. This doesn't just pertain to web design. This pertains to everything in life, and finding that edge that you all have inside of you to help you learn. A lot of people, when they come and ask me questions, I frequently don't know. And what I do is I go out and I learn it really quick, and then once I learn it, I go and teach. Then the people typically think I knew the entire time, when that's not the case. I actually just learned it like 10 minutes ago. So that is really, really important, and I'm going to hit it over and over again. All right? So here's a quick quick history. Hypertext markup language. It's actually very cool if you think about it. Tim Berners-Lee, he was a contractor, and I think it was called CERN was the name of the contracting company. In 1990 is when HTML was invented. I mean, that wasn't very long ago. So you think about where we are at today versus 1990, that's insane. Like there's no evolution is happening so rapidly in technology. It's amazing. And the second bullet here is just giving you a couple of ideas of, between 1990 and 95, a few different languages were created which helped to basically create this triad of programming on the web. And one of them is called Cascading Style Sheets. You're going to use this heavily when you start doing the design features of your site. So your font sizes, your font faces, your radiuses around your different borders, your background colors, anything visual, that's what the cascading style sheets are. And in short, we just call it CSS. JavaScript is another example. That is your client-side programming. And by client, I mean it's on your computer. A server sends this code to your computer, and your computer executes that code. It's very, very cool because it allows rapid processing on your computer for stuff that you can do without having to send a request back to a server. And that whole client-server talk, if you're brand new at this, that may not mean much to you yet, but I have a visual in a future slide that will break it down just a little bit better. PHP is a server-side programming language, and there are many client-side and server-side languages, but PHP is one of the older ones that has been around, and it's very popular. It's, WordPress, if you've heard of that, it is built. WordPress uses PHP heavily, and really it's just the server-side processing. So when a request is sent to a server, that server is going to execute particular files, and it's going to be in a specific language. That language is PHP or some other server-side language, right? So this is a nice little diagram here, and basically giving you the idea of the client-server relationship. So here we have 5 clients. So client is a computer, the computer you're sitting in front of possibly, or your phone. And that phone or computer that you have, if you want to go to a website, say google.com, youtube.com, wherever you'd like to go, you've got this request. And now the request is, imagine you typing it into your browser, www.google.com. When you do that and you hit enter, what's going to happen is your browser is going to send a request up to the Google server. Now, don't ask me how it gets from the client to the server in this episode, because then we'll start talking about things like DNS and the cloud and hops and all sorts of things, how and IP addresses, things that are beyond the scope of this discussion. But just know that it gets from your computer to the server, and that server knows based on that request where to send the information back to. So what happens? Well, once that request gets to the server, it's going to go into a file folder somewhere that has some files. And those files are what we're going to be building. Those files are going to then execute the code in the files and then send a response back to you. So google.com, and then you see it. And after you see that, you're going to type in some sort of information, a search or whatever. Or maybe you're logging into a website and you're putting in an email and a password, and you hit enter again. And when you hit enter again, it goes right back up to that server, and it does whatever processing it needs to do, and then it goes back to the client. So that's basically how it works. There's communication back and forth. And if you understand that, then you can understand this circle that we just added here around the outside. There is a clear delineation between the client and the server. The client cannot do anything unless it already has the information it needs from the server. So in other words, you can't type in google.com and then run a search of small cat videos, hit enter, and have it all execute on your computer itself. It has to go past this line, go to the server, get the information, and push it back. Now, more advanced discussions can discuss things like caching, where information is stored on the computer for longer periods of time. But again, that's beyond the scope of this. We're not going to go into that too much. But just understand that any information that the computer needs, it's going to have to cross this magical line to get it from the server. And then the server cannot process on the computer because of this line as well. But information can get sent back and forth. So here's some common server-side programming languages: PHP, ASP, C++. I mean, if you've never done any programming, this is not going to mean a whole lot to you. I'm sure you've heard of Java. That's a very popular, common one. You may see the Java updates pop up on your computer from time to time. Python is very popular nowadays, etc., because there are more. PHP is very common, so I'll probably spend more time just going over the PHP discussion. But again, understand that once you're building your website, you're going to be using one of these languages or just pure HTML, of course. And then JavaScript. I only have JavaScript here. There are more client-side languages, but JavaScript is the most common across the internet, and a lot of the new ones are pretty much just derivatives of JavaScript. So understand that JavaScript is going to be your client-side programming, and then these others are going to be your server-side programming languages. And really, what it comes down to is eventually you'll have to decide for yourself, how much information do I want to push to my computer for how long it's going to take my web page to load. So think, if you send a whole bunch of JavaScript to do some client-side processing down to your computer, and that is so much that it takes your computer 5 minutes to load the page, you probably want to reduce the amount of JavaScript and increase the amount of server-side programming, and vice versa. If there's a ton of PHP, C++, whatever on your server that could just be something you send as JavaScript down to the client, then you want to have that happy balance between the two. And that's really where this delineation comes into play. All right, so this is wrapping up the video. I mean, what are you going to need? You're going to need a computer and Notepad, really. You could use Notepad, you could use Notepad++. There are lots of different resources out there, but that's pretty much it. So let me just end this by showing you w3schools.com. We're going to be using this site in future videos, and really you could just look, there's a web page right there. So instead of typing these up line by line, since we're learning how to learn, we're going to reverse engineer these things. We're going to take the code, we're going to paste it somewhere, we're going to run it, and it's going to execute right away. And so W3 Schools is probably the most helpful resource that I've used since I've started web design, and I'm hoping that we can just kind of learn together through building this, some of the different things that you can do with it. Another thing is Stack Overflow. So stackoverflow.com is a good resource because this is basically Web 2.0. This is user-generated content that if you have a question, you go out there, you post the question, and then the answer will be answered by somebody else, just like you, that may have the answer. And it's really cool how they police it, because they ensure there aren't duplicates put out there. If there are, they're quickly removed. You can only comment on certain types of things once you get certain points for your votes and stuff like that. So it's very cool, but honestly, you could search through here by tags. You won't need to do that probably. I mean, if I do HTML, enter, there's, 766,000. You're not going to want to go through all of that. Typically, if you have a problem you're trying to solve, you're going to go out to Google, type it in, and then you'll just find a Stack Overflow link directly to your particular problem. And that's it. So these are two common ones. There are several others, but I'm going to wrap it up here and just tune into the next one where we're actually going to build a web page, our first web page. I'm going to explain what each of the tags do, and then we're going to get more and more complex as time progresses. So that is going to end the video. Comment and question below if there's anything specific that you're interested in learning as we go through this, because this is very, very dynamic. I don't have 30 episodes already pre-mapped. I'm just going to gradually become more intermediate to advanced as we progress. So feel free. This is a two-way conversation. I'd be happy to help you out with anything you may have going on. All right? Thanks. Bye.